Give your peoples a hello, official hello.
Just recording. Great. Good night, everyone. How are you guys doing? It's good to see you all. I'm thankful that you guys are all here. Yeah. Hello.
All right, so thank you, Danique, for that. And hello, everyone. So my name is Cherie Campbell. So I'm the manager for Black Family Support. I don't know if I have met you all, those who are here. But if you have not met me, here I am. So Danique has been doing a wonderful job within the program, and I'm hearing great things from those who are giving feedback. And I want to thank all of you for participating, taking the time out. I know you have the children, and you just left work, some of you, or you have other things that you had to attend to before coming here, but thank you for making the time to be here, and I know that the information that you'll receive today will be very useful for you. And we have a wonderful guest speaker that is here. Shayna, would you like to say hello to everyone before you begin?
Of course. Hello, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I'm going to just start off with a quick land acknowledgement, and then we're going to have Shayna introduce Shayna officially and then have her come on and speak. So that was our official welcome. So our land acknowledgement is put in place to honor those who have been, the first inhabitants of this land that we are on. And I hold this dear because it truly represents or reminds us of the historical context in terms of even though many of us are settlers, but it just reminds us of, those who are here before us, and, sort of all of the trauma that they have experienced and their resilience and ability to overcome. So we would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather and which Malton Neighborhood Services within the region of Peel operates is a part of the treaty lands and territory of Mississauga of the Credit. For thousands of years, Indigenous people inhabited and cared for this land and continue to do so today. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabeg, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, I don't know how to pronounce these properly.
It's okay.
And
The
the
Haudenosaunee. It's okay.
Yes, thank you. Chippewa people, the land that is home to the Métis and most recently territory of the Mississauga of Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississauga of Credit. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to the first inhabitants. So the other one I would like to share as well is our African ancestral acknowledgement. The Malton Neighborhood Services acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. So without further ado, I'll let Shayna introduce herself and take it over from here.
Thank you so much. How powerful. Thank you. If I share, I might be able to take over. Okay. I'm not sure if it's going to switch. Yep. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Are you able to see my screen? Just double checking.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Before I start, once again, I really wanted to say thank you to Malton Neighborhood Services for organizing all of this, to Cherie and Donique. I'm so excited to present this evening, and without further ado, let's start, because my next couple of slides includes an introduction. So today's workshop is called, Is the French Immersion Program Right for Your Child? Now, because I used to teach, I love to provide an agenda. And for those who also just want to know how the presentation is laid out, I'm going to start off with some introductions. And then we're going to talk about briefly French as a second language options in Ontario. And then we're going to take a look at, and I'll have you reflect on your child's personality, behavior, and overall attitude towards learning, followed by languages spoken at home. And I really want to talk to you about your readiness for the language learning journey. And then we'll wrap up with possible next steps and some conclusions. Now, a little bit about myself. My name is Shana Baptiste Ishayemi. I'm actually the creator and founder of Faire Sens. I'll talk to you about that a bit later on, but I'm a French as a second language consultant in addition to a founder. I created this company because I am very passionate about helping parents, guardians, and caregivers make sense of the French as a second language curriculum in Ontario based on what I have seen in my experience as a teacher. So by day, I'm actually a bilingual career advisor and educator. And as I had shared, I used to teach. I was a French and careers teacher for about 10 years. I supported many diverse students linguistically and also in other aspects. I used to work in the Toronto District School Board. I taught grade 7 and 8 French, and I worked in York Region as well, teaching grade 9 French, grade 10 careers. If you're curious a little bit about my background, my educational background, I have an honors Bachelor of Arts in French Studies, and actually used to live and study abroad in France during my undergrad for my 3rd year, and that's actually how I became bilingual, in addition to taking core French all the way up to grade 12. Oh, sorry about that. And I have a bachelor's of education. Of course, that's how I'm able to teach. And my bachelor's of education has a focus on French as a second language, which is why I feel so strongly about supporting all of you today. And lastly, I have a career strategist certification with a focus on career development and career planning, which in my opinion allows me to support the whole student, because you're all here trying to make an informed decision for your child for their future. So I also like to provide my advice when we're talking about short-term and long-term goals. So as promised, let's talk about French as a second language options in Ontario. Okay, so for starters, there's core French. There's also something called extended French in addition to French immersion. I know you're all here for the third. Each program has different language targets. In fact, the French immersion program usually starts in junior kindergarten or grade 1, depending on the school board, and the total target hours of French language instruction is a minimum of 3,800 hours by the end of grade 8. That's mandated by the Ministry of Education. Again, it's a minimum. It can definitely be more. Okay. And it's important, of course, we know French immersion means everything in French, but actually when your child is in the French immersion program, they take their French as a second language course in addition to 2 other subjects that are taught in French. And again, this is a minimum. So that could be any of the following subjects here: the arts, social studies, history and geography, mathematics, science and technology, and physical health and physical education. Now, it's important to know that this depends on the school board and even the school, because unfortunately there is a lack of qualified trained teachers at the French immersion level. So what do I mean by that? In order to teach in a school board, to teach French, every school board has their own language tests. They can do multiple choice. They have interviews in French. You usually have to write some sort of, I had to write a couple of essays in French, and the results actually determine if a teacher can teach at the French immersion level or not. So that's what I mean by that. And as a result, even if a teacher was only deemed to be able to teach core French or extended French, due to the lack of demand, sometimes they're asked, if not oftentimes, to teach French immersion anyway. And talk about that later if you're interested. So now, this part of the presentation is all about your child. So I'm going to have a lot of prompting questions for you to think about, and we're going to start about personality. Okay, so what's your child's personality like? Are they friendly, outgoing, quiet, anxious, curious, or shy? And these are just a few adjectives, right? You can think there are so many others you can ask yourself, but these are a few to start with. Are they a leader or are they a follower? Are they a self-starter? So do they take initiative? Are they open to change? Do they get bored easily or give up easily? Does their personality generally change around other children? Now you might be wondering, well, why are we asking about this? Like, at least in Peel, French immersion starts in grade 1. So your child is probably only 4. So it's a lot. It's really hard to pinpoint their personality. But for all of us parents, guardians, caregivers on this call today, on this presentation, you know your child. You've been with them for about 3 to 4 years. So I really want you to start thinking about this, because the French immersion program is a completely new environment. And for most, your child might have never heard French before, and they're going to be faced with challenges and change. So you want to start thinking about your child and if this is something that they can handle at this time. Which brings me to their behavior. What's your child's behavior like at home, at daycare, if they're going, or preschool, with family and or with other children? Do they willingly introduce themselves to new children? Do they regularly throw tantrums? I say regularly because I know we all can say, yes, our children throw tantrums, right? They're only 3 or 4 years old. Do you have to repeat yourself often when you ask them to do something? Do they need to be reminded to do things? Again, you could probably say yes to this, but I'm very intentional with these questions, because when you're in the French immersion program, everything is going to be brand new. So we want to set up our children for success, or our child for success. If you know they have a hard time with change or with instructions or with authority, not saying not to register them, but then you have to really ask yourself if this is the program for them, or should I look into something else? Or give it a try. We can talk about that afterwards. So this brings me to their attitude towards learning. How is your child's overall attitude towards learning at home, daycare, preschool, and or with family or friends, right? And what do I mean by this? If you regularly read with your child, or you try different activities at home, do they fight you on it, or are they always excited? And which brings me to the next question. Do they get excited? Do they ask questions? Do they want to learn more? Or do they get angry, shy away, shut down when presented with new information? Again, these are very strategic questions, because as a former teacher, these are some key indicators when we're trying to teach a classroom of 20 minimum students, sometimes up to 30. So now let's talk about languages spoken at home. Do they speak any other languages at home? Are they learning any other languages aside from what they speak at home? Sometimes people ask me, well, my child already speaks 3 languages. This is a good fit. At the end of the day, if your child speaks or understands multiple languages, this actually may help them in the French immersion program, or it might hinder them, because not all languages are part of the same linguistic categories. Again, I'm not saying don't enroll them, but this is something to consider. Now, let's take some time to talk about you and your readiness for the journey. How ready are you to be a parent, guardian, or caregiver who has a child in a program that is either fully or partially French from the very beginning? And I'll talk about this further in the next couple of slides. And my second question is, do you speak and understand the French language? If not, that's completely fine. Most parents do not. Most people do not. But if not, are you prepared to pay for tutors throughout your child's language learning journey? So let's look into that in a bit more detail in the slides to come. Let's focus on the first piece. Please note the following. In the French immersion program, the English language as a subject, which is called language, is usually not taught until grade 3 or 4, when your child's about 9 or 10 years old in most school boards. So as a result, it would be highly recommended that you supplement their English language learning with educational resources, should you choose this option, and if you don't want the program to teach them at a later time. Let me repeat, because I kind of messed that part up. So, should you choose French immersion and you do not want to wait for the program to introduce English in grades 3 or 4 at an academic level, I encourage you to supplement their learning. What do I mean by this? It's not enough for you to say, well, my child speaks English at home. They live in Peel, they live in the GTA, they hear English all the time, they watch TV. I'm talking about educational resources so that they can speak listen, read, and write English at an academic level. So that might maybe mean doing some workbooks at home, worksheets, reading with them regularly in addition to them learning French, so that they're able to pretty much multitask and truly be bilingual at the end of the day. But this is what I mean by your readiness. Is that something you're interested in, or do you just want to wait? Okay. Now, when we're talking about your readiness to support them when it comes to tutors, here is an example. If your child struggles with grade 4 mathematics and French, for example, they would need a tutor who specializes in elementary mathematics, but whose services are also in English. What do I mean by this? You cannot just hire a regular math tutor because they're in the French Immersion program. If an English speaker who specializes in math tries to support your child, it's not going to connect because they would have been learning all of the vocabulary in French. So if you're looking for someone like this and you want them to be, let's say, an Ontario certified teacher or someone with a lot of experience, they tend to charge about $30 to $80 an hour minimum, or even more depending on their years of experience. So if your child is struggling in multiple subjects being taught in French, be prepared to pay for multiple tutors. And this can happen in any given academic year, meaning from September to June. It could be in grade 2, it could be in grade 4, it could be every year because they will be doing multiple subjects in French. So it's something to consider. So when it comes to possible next steps, after reflecting on your child's overall situation and your readiness to support their language learning journey, if you still feel like you need additional support and or want to learn about alternative program options in detail, I would strongly recommend booking a FSL phone consultation with Versance. And if you're wondering, well, what does that entail? Well, if you book an appointment, I personally will inform you of the available program options in your preferred school board. I say that specifically because our English language school boards, we have public, we have Catholic, right? I will also provide you with comparisons for each program. I will explain the possible setbacks for each program. And I will also recommend one program based on your child's personal and academic situation, based on those prompting questions we talked about and any additional information that you might have shared on the call. And then I would give you an opportunity to ask me questions afterwards. So of course, this is available to those who live in Peel, but our services are also for Durham, Halton, Toronto, and York regions. And it's important to note, I support students entering junior kindergarten up to grade 8. And if you're not interested in booking an appointment, that's absolutely fine. I also encourage you to stay connected and follow us on social media. That could be through our website, sending an email if you thought of a question after today, or just following us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, where I've actually have a lot of informational videos pertaining to French immersion. So on that note, I want to make sure that I am clear that the French immersion program is a great opportunity with many advantages. However, every child is unique, and what works for one may not work for another. And I've had a lot of conversations in my experience as a teacher where people are excited about the program because their neighbor's child's doing well, their kids doing well, or they heard a story about a story. At the end of the day, it's important to reflect on your child and what you know when it comes to their strengths and what they need to work on. So for additional support, check out our resources section on our website as well, which will be available to you after the presentation when the slides are emailed to you. So on that note, do you have any questions? I know there were a few already provided to me. I'm not sure how Cherie and Donique want to do that, but I would love to answer the questions that you have.
So I know you guys can't unmute yourselves, but please feel free to write your message in the chat, or if you'd like me to unlock you, I can. I don't know why you can't unmute yourselves, and I apologize for that again.
And if you'd like, I can read out the questions that you've, or one of you can read out the questions that you have
Yeah.
already, and then I can
Yeah.
answer those, and then we can, continue as everyone sees fit.
Mhm.
I think there was already a question. I can't see the chat. Here we go. Give me a second. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I can read all the questions for you. So one of the first questions that were asked were, how can I support my child during the summer months of starting a French immersion program in September? So the summer kind of leading up to the school year.
Absolutely. That was a great question. So on my website, I have a resource section. And you know what? If you give me a second, I'm just going to go to the resource section because I
Yeah.
think instead of just saying it, you can have a look. And if you have any questions about that, give me a
Mhm.
second. I will share my screen just to guide because I don't want to assume that you know how to get there either. All right, I think you can see that, right? So under
Yes.
resources, French language support. So I encourage anyone who even has a child in the program, this section is for you. Here are a list of free language resources available for your child. So I used to use Duolingo in the classroom all the time. I know people still do. You can create a free account. It's essentially like a game of sorts. It's a full tree, a grammar tree with all the tenses in French. They have podcasts, they have articles, everything, you name it. And essentially your child can just start by playing and doing a placement test to see how much French they know, or they can start from the very beginning, just doing the basics. And that's something where I encourage you to create the account for them, sit with them, but there's an app version, there's a desktop version, and essentially they can play and learn as they go. They do everything. They do language, language. They do speaking, so you actually have to use your microphone to practice to say the words in French. You have to do translation from French to English, English to French, and there's a whole bunch of other tools to talk to address all of the strands. And then we've got some other French websites here. You just click everything, they open up. It's very important. The La Rouge d'Or is a very great series from TFO, and you can just start watching videos. They don't understand, it's okay. They have the visuals, right? So that's just to show you that there are resources there. If you just want to watch regular TV, turn your captions on to French so that it's actually the reverse. If you're watching Netflix, put it on French. They can start seeing the words. If you want to buy something, you can there's a couple of great workbooks here. You can get them at Costco, you can get them on Amazon, and I'll leave it at that. There's a bunch of other things there that you could do over the summer at your leisure, at your own pace. Okay, I will stop.
That's amazing, Shauna. We actually do have a question in the chat, so we'll jump over to the question. Someone is asking, what are good ways to start children as early as 1 year old to learn a language?
Great question. I first want to say don't put too much pressure on yourself or your child, because if you speak the language, great. I mean, I personally have a 1-year-old now on as of Monday, and I speak to her in French because I can. But again, on the site there, some of those websites are actually linked to real channels on TV. So it's just played in the background, right? Have TFO on, some sort of like age appropriate TV show, because repetition is key. Our daughter, we don't watch TV for now, but we listen to everything on Spotify. So part of the daily routine is a French playlist of like children's, they call it des comptines, nursery rhymes. And it's funny because as soon as we play it, she recognizes it, because anything you do, repetition. So that's a nice, fun, passive way where they can start hearing the words, if that makes sense.
Nice. Okay, we'll go to one of the other questions that were sent in from before. The second question was, in regards to the French immersion program based in Peel region, is there a wait list or a lottery set up to get into a program like this?
Absolutely. The short answer is yes. They do a lottery system, and then after that, they even have a wait list. One thing I did do prior to this call, I just will bring it up again for you. Sometimes, to be honest, it's there, but you might have missed it. So I'm just going to quickly guide you to where to find that information on the Peel Public district school board, because both the Catholic and public do lottery, just letting you know.
Okay.
So the application, so I just went to their website, typed in French Immersion, or guide your way through there. And right here in the application process, they've gone through quite a bit of detail to actually state that it's a computerized system that chooses it by random based on when you've submitted it and other factors. It just kind of just starts picking and putting for both their French Immersion and extended French program, and then it does a waitlist feature as well. I won't show you for the Deaf and Peel Catholic, but it's a similar concept. So unfortunately, yes, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't apply.
Shayna, is there another way to sort of get in after if you have been denied the first time? Is there another opportunity after that to reapply? Do you encourage maybe individuals doing French outside, at just outside, and just to continue if that's the avenue they want their child to take?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from what I had read, and just from the past customers I've supported, there's lottery, and then there's wait list, and then if they don't have a spot, they don't have a spot, and they only have grade 1 entry. So there's no applying for other grades after the fact. An alternative is extended French, which I talk about in a phone consultation, but that's in grade 7. So those are the two language options outside of the regular core French. Now, when it comes to what can you do outside of the classroom, that actually brings me back to that French language support that I was talking about, because essentially your child can almost be at the same level or even more advanced than their peers if they were in core French grade 4, if they've been playing Duolingo for a year. I used to have students when I taught applied French, they were so excited to play, and they would regularly, I'd give them 15 minutes a day, and you'd be surprised how much they learn in such a short period of time. And they also have the Explore program, which are for around 13 years of age. That's funded by the ministry, by the government, excuse me. You just have to pay for transportation, and they can do a 6-week intensive program in Quebec. That's something to also consider a little bit later on. So there's different ways to approach your bilingualism. I, for one, did core French from grade 4. I dropped out in grade 9 like everyone else did. And then I begged to be put back in the program because I saw the value, and I did it till grade 12, did it in university, but then I actually moved to France for a year. And that immersion experience is how I became bilingual in 4 months. So there's many ways you can go about it, if that makes sense. Sorry, I think there's another question, but.
Yeah. I can read it out to you. I'm not sure if you're able to see it, but it says, if you live within the school boundary, would it still be a waitlist or a lottery?
Yes, so unfortunately, from what I gather, is you almost want to apply as soon as possible, because the computer, literally, as soon as new applicants come in, it just starts assigning by random their places. It must have to do with demand, to be honest, because other boards used to have lottery and then some took it away. And it also has to do with the teachers, because the goal is not to have more than 20 students in a class. So they, I believe, have had to continue to have this in place to ensure that they are at capacity or don't exceed it.
Thank you. And now, actually taking that question a step further, is that similar for other boards? Like, I know some of our moms recently moved to other regions. So maybe if you could just quickly run through the other school boards.
Sure. So this is why I offer this service, because I actually have a list of all the boards and all the deadlines, and I check it every year because it changes all the time. And I can tell you right now that
Toronto would be one, or Durham, or
that actually the only places that I've found out, that there was a lottery, or confirmed rather, let me say confirmed, was the Peel region. Everyone else, for the most part, everyone else that I support, Durham, Halton, Toronto, York, do not have a lottery system.
Okay.
If anything, they're still leaning towards making sure everyone has access, but it doesn't mean they don't have deadlines. And every school board has their own deadline. If you're interested, that's something we can talk about. Send an email.
So being prepared.
because
Be
it
prepared
literally,
and get your application in early is what I'm getting.
yes, but be prepared and also don't assume that the board will accept your application because PLs is
Right.
due January 26th. You have some boards, they've already had their application deadline pass
Right.
for certain things. Yeah, for certain, excuse me, for French immersion. I hope I answered your question.
No, yeah, you did. That's really good
Okay,
to
great.
know. And then the second last question was, are there any scholarships or support programs in place to assist families who face financial barriers in participating in the French immersion program?
Unfortunately, no. French immersion is still a part of the public and Catholic English-speaking school board. It's free education. I still double checked, right? You know, I don't want to make assumptions, but scholarships tend to be for colleges and universities for those pursuing French studies or doing a bilingual education. But at the point of elementary and secondary, unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately because it is a part of our free education. It's the onus is on the guardian to find additional supports and to provide tutoring and all of the additional extras outside of the teacher and in the classroom.
And I wonder, like, if there is a family that can afford the extra external tutoring, are there any supports that you may know of that are free or low cost for families to kind of get that services, even though they want their child to be in French immersion still?
So, without dropping different names of other organizations or spaces, it really just depends on doing a quick search to see if they offer drop-in tutoring. Excuse me, drop-in homework help, because I used to run a homework help company or business as well. It's a very big difference between homework help and tutoring, because someone might be able to just review your homework and support you there for free. But tutoring is very time consuming. It's very costly as a result, because every child has to get their own personalized program depending on where they're at. So tutoring, unfortunately, I've never come across tutoring that's free. There is affordable tutoring, and that depends on your comfort level. If you want to have a high school student support your child, maybe a high school French immersion student that does tutoring for you. But I tell people all the time, French immersion gets really difficult by grade 3. And in most boards, excuse me, some boards, it's 100% French from grade 1. So this is why I try to educate people from the offset so that there are no surprises, and they have that in their information sessions as well. It's going to be hard at some point because at grade 3, that's when they start introducing English. So if your child hasn't mastered to the best of their abilities the French language by grade 3 and now they're expected to do English, it's just going to keep getting harder. So I hope I've explained that it's not free because people have to spend the time to make sure that they're supporting your child accordingly. Especially teachers, they will charge at least $40 an hour because they taught during the day and then now are supporting your child in the evening. And so
Thank
I
you,
see
Shana.
Novlet has a question. I can see that one. Where can parents learn to help the child? Is it possible to get a little bit more clarification on that outside of what we've already discussed? I want to make sure I'm answering the question properly. Where can parents learn to help the child? Wait, I think I can make sense of that. So it depends, right? Because every year is going to look different. Oh, I see. Okay, I got it.
Before you begin, Shayna, I'll stick a
Yes,
pin there
sure.
because this is promo into the work that we're doing with Elise.
Oh, great.
So,
Oh, great.
Shayna, yeah, so Shayna has, sort of directed us in the way of connecting with someone who a Black Family Support Program will be partnering with
Yay.
to offer some sort of programming for parents to be able to assist their children. So I'm just plugging that with Navlet's question. So hopefully in the upcoming months, you will find that support with us here at with Black Family Support. So fingers crossed, we get that going, and then you can have that here. We'll have some workshops popping up that will help you to support your kids.
I'm so happy to hear that. That's fantastic. And I personally partnered and collaborated with Elise for over a year now. By doing a similar presentation like this is what sparked my, is what gave me the idea to continue to partner with organizations. We're all about making sure it's all accessible, but I'm also all about being transparent and making sure you know what you're up against, right? It's not to discourage, it's to educate and empower. So I really am excited for all of you on that point. But outside of that collaboration to come, each school board tends to have resources on their website for specifically that when it comes to how a parent or guardian or caregiver can support their child. I would encourage you to go, whether it's to the public school board, Catholic, wherever you're interested in, and to see what they have there. They should have hopefully videos, slides, what have you. But it's all pretty much the same. If you don't speak the language, you don't speak the language, but it doesn't mean you can't create a Duolingo account or something similar, just to have a little bit of the basics, or even trying out one of the workbooks so that you can, just understand some of the words and what your child will be given when it comes to their work. It's a tricky one, but it's a part of the process. That's why I call it, are you ready for their language learning journey?
And I'm gonna say as well to tail end that nothing beats love and support. Even if you don't know, hug and a kiss, it will be okay. We'll get through this. Nothing beats love and support. So even if you don't have money to your name to do all of these, payments for these programs and other things, don't be discouraged.
Right.
Just offer as much support and kindness and understanding to your child as they're going through the process as you can.
One thing I can add to that, which I almost don't want to forget, because I'm very much in solidarity with my fellow and former teachers. Obviously, you're here because you haven't decided yet, or you're going to put your child in this program, and they're already in school, right? Because it's for grade 1. Don't forget that your child's teacher is, for the most part, your number one ally, right? If you have open dialogue and communication from the very beginning, you would be amazed what you're going to learn and be able to accomplish when it comes to their journey. I always tell people, read the grade in addition to the comments, right? Teachers spend so much time reporting on your child, providing comments, parent-teacher interviews. And if you email them, they will respond. If you ask for them to call, they will call you, especially when it's in a timely manner and when it's in a respectful manner. They actually want to support your child. And if you're finding that's not the case, then of course, then maybe ask to speak to admin. But on my website there, under French language support, I actually have a video on how to ensure your child is excelling in the French Immersion program if you've already enrolled them. And that was a presentation I did with Elise as well. So there, it's not a direct where you know the language, but I've taught in that video certain questions to ask. And I believe I'm doing the same presentation for Malton Neighborhood Services as well. So I encourage you to come to that workshop as well.
Right, and that's what, February 26th, Danique?
28th, Wednesday.
I was about to say, I'm like, I feel like it's the 28th. It is. It is.
Awesome.
So I hope that, Navlet, I hope we were able to answer your questions. Your question on that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Danique, I think we have one more question or two more.
Yeah, one more. The last one is, how does the French Immersion program address the needs of students with diverse learning abilities, including those with special needs, to ensure an inclusive learning environment?
Right, thank you. So in a nutshell, I want to make sure maybe those of us who are on the call today aren't aware, there is something called an individual education plan, also known as an IEP. And that is something that in consultation with your child's teacher, the CERT team and everybody else can create a document to make sure your child has accommodations put in place after they've done a psychological assessment, if need be. And that could just be accommodations with how they're being assessed. That could be accommodations with their environment. That could be accommodations for their instructions, how they receive information. Once that's in place, it is a legal document that a teacher has to adhere to the best of their abilities, especially because most of the time there's multiple students in a class with that. So that's already the first step to ensuring that your child's being supported, whether they're in an English stream or a French language stream. Excuse me. And they also have a document that was published in 2015 that's actually a guide for Ontario schools that's literally called Inclusive Learning for Students with Disabilities in French language programs, and that was created for teachers and to give them strategies, suggestions, tips to support our diverse learners. Now, I'll be very transparent. The documentation is there. All these suggestions are there. But I have found that in the French immersion classrooms, there aren't that many educational assistants in the classrooms that can speak French. So as much as they've got all of these guidelines and that they have, they can only do so much, the teacher, when they have 20 students in the class, meaning they'll make sure that they'll do their best that the lesson plan accommodates all the learners. They've got different activities, but they still can't one-on-one support your child every day, all day, if that makes sense, because there's still so many students. So whereas in an English classroom setting, there's usually an EA that can walk around or sit with students that need the support. It's not always guaranteed in the French immersion classroom, just due to not having staff that can actually support the children or the child. And lastly, pardon me, don't forget, you still talk to the teacher, right? If you feel that they're not being supported, or maybe you realized maybe they missed something. The documents are pretty lengthy, I'll be honest. They can't catch everything, and it's important to still always have that open dialogue and even talk to your child to make sure that everybody is doing their best. But I'll be honest, it's very tricky. It's not the same as in the English classroom or track, if you will, English language track.
Shayna, I was going to ask, I know we had set this meeting in accordance with, I think there's a deadline that's coming up.
Yes.
Let's let the families know about that.
Yes, thank you. Gotcha. Excuse me. So got it right here. For Peel District School Board, French Immersion, the deadline is January 26, 2024, so in a couple of weeks. If you're interested in extended French, which at this point is for grade 7, so that would be a lot later, it's also January 26th. If you are interested in the Catholic School Board, then you will be looking, French Immersion is January 30th. The extended French is mid-February. They're just haven't finalized that date yet. I actually check regularly and I still don't have that information, but it's this month. It's this month.
Awesome. Okay. If we have any final questions, maybe you can post it now so that we can wrap up. So we'll just wait a few minutes if anyone is typing. Okay. So Shayna, can you just let everyone know once again before you wrap up? I like to, you mentioned repetition is key. So I'd like you to share again how we can reach you. We're going to send these slides to everyone. So you will be emailed the slides for today's workshop. We do have another workshop coming up, by the way. Denise, can you get that flyer ready to just share it to everyone in the meantime? Mm-hmm. And but I'd like for you to just share again, how we can get in touch with you.
Thank you. So you can reach me at our website. For short, it's fairesens.ca, FAIRESENS.ca. I have a Google business profile up as well. There are reviews there, pictures, additional resources. You can follow us on Instagram Facebook or YouTube, and it's all at fairesens.ca. And if you want to send an email, I think I can probably type really quickly. Because saying things sometimes doesn't help, right? So
Yes.
support at
It's always
fairesens.
key.
I just didn't want to copy and paste everything into the
Oh,
chat.
that's okay.
But the email address, I think, is always the fastest way to get
Right.
human response. Support at fairesens.ca, and I will be glad to respond and support you however I can.
Awesome. Thank you. Danique, you have that flyer up and ready? Awesome. So we have our part 2 to this workshop. So Wednesday, February 28th. So this one's going to be how to ensure that your child is excelling in the French Immersion program. So it's by Shayna again. She was a wonderful speaker for today. So if you enjoyed this one, please do come back for the other one. And I'm going to just add and say, and bring a friend.
Very
So if you
well.
know anyone else who is interested and you feel like this, is in their ballpark in terms of information that would be beneficial for them, please do share. The flyer will be posted by Danique to our chat, our group, and it will also be on our M&S website. So please do come out. We'd like to thank you, Danique, for sharing. So Danique, you can give your final words.
Well, I want to thank you again, Shayna, for coming out. You were a great speaker. I'm looking forward to part 2.
Thank you.
Families, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to come and be a part of this workshop. And I look forward to seeing you in part 2 again. As Cherie said, tell a friend to tell a friend. And please, please, please check out Shayna's workshop, our website, sorry. Everything is going to be posted in the chat within a couple of days. Just give me some time to get that kind of together and sent out. And yeah.
And I just wanted to say thank you because immediately when I sent out this call, if you will, to support and partner, Cherie was on it. And she said, you know what, we're going to do both workshops because we want to make sure everyone gets the full picture. And I really appreciate it because for the questions that we've had this evening, the second workshop, although it's for parents, guardians, and caregivers with children, ideally already in the program, why not attend so you can actually understand how to support your child if you register them, right? It's 2 parts, right? You then will learn about the questions to ask, that what to look for, and that way hopefully you feel armed to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Merci.
Thank you.
I'll try it. Merci beaucoup.
The words were there.
Missing
you so
everything else,
much.
but the words were there.
That's right. Thank you to those who are still on the call and for those who joined us this evening. I really appreciated and enjoyed speaking to all of you.
All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone. Good night.
Good night.